Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're going to recap this week in cannabis news from August 2nd to the 8th. So before we jump in, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And then, of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. Then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes to learn about the evolution of the industry over time, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you're ready. But we're going to start with this article from Investor Business Daily, investors.com, why they think it's time to get serious about U.S. cannabis stocks. It's almost like they've been watching my channel. So let's see what they have to say. With state legalization expanding and financial troubles receding, Wall Street says it's time to pay attention to U.S. cannabis stocks. Hey, it's like they've been watching my channel. Their path to profitability is firmer than their better hyped Canadian counterparts, analysts say. The playing field is bigger even though cannabis isn't federally legal yet. And again, we don't need federal legalization for these companies to see more and more success in legal states. That's going to happen regardless. Sales growth for the biggest producers is stronger, and the growth is helping reshape the U.S. cannabis industry as big companies buy up smaller ones. Profitability between Canadian LPs and American MSOs is night and day, says Eric Delory as cannabis stock analyst at Craig-Hallum, and I've been saying that for a long time, so it's nice to see them say this as well and agree with what I've been saying. Top U.S. pot producers like Green Thumb Industries, Trulieve, and Cresco Labs, names you've no doubt seen over and over on this channel, have operations stretching across multiple legal states. Analysts point to those companies as the best equipped for continued growth in an industry whose sales could surpass $28 billion next year. And notice during the year, we're always increasing the total addressable market for next year because it's like, wow, this sales just keep growing. So lots to look forward to and lots of growth to be had. Now, caveats do remain though. Efforts to legalize cannabis at the federal level face reluctant lawmakers, but again, that doesn't matter for the success on the ground and the fundamentals of this company, which is good. Profitability in the cannabis stock universe sometimes comes with a few asterisks. Acquisitions are accelerating, but could get complicated. Worries endure that the prospect of an industry dominated by a handful of companies burying the nation under indistinguishable, low-quality weed that drives away consumers. What world is this person living in? California, it turns out. This industry is rife with examples of companies that have become generic corporations that treat this like seltzer water or consumer generic goods, says Sam Goad, CEO of Connected, a California-based cannabis producer. But California is its own market and its own cannabis universe. Then every other state is its own universe. And I just want to remind you that, sure, you can worry about that, but the numbers show us that consumers are running to cannabis faster than ever before, throwing their money at it. So again, although these worries could be plausible for some people in certain states or some operators in certain states, that's not the case US-wide. So this sentence is just rubbish to me. But despite those concerns about product quality, and also it's like, yeah, that might happen 10 years down the line when all of the consolidation has happened and it becomes like the alcohol industry when only 4 companies own all of the, alcohol products. But that's nowhere near any time happening now. Maybe it's closer to that in California, but again, just pointing that out. Most people following the industry see the legal world expanding with ample room for gains, as I do and as you most likely do. And on top of that, thank you Weed Street 420 for supplying this. The U.S. cannabis market currently stands at about $65 billion in annual revenue, according to analysts at investment bank Cowen. And this would include legal and illegal. But by 2030, this number is expected to balloon to $100 billion if cannabis is federally legalized. But the whole idea would be like, that could be $100 billion in legal sales if we get rid of the black market. If the lawmakers stall and we don't, then it's just going to continue to be this sort of mess. But this is going to show the potential U.S. cannabis market if we were able to get all of black market sales into legal sales. And that is there's a lot of room for growth. And basically where the previously total addressable market was 80 billion, now it's 100 billion, that adds another potential multiple to how much our prices or our share prices could go up in time if that adds another 20 billion to that overall market by 2030. So just wanted to add that. So this does contradict when they're saying that consumers might run away if all the bud's the same. That's certainly not the case right now in 2021. That is nothing to be worried about. And then I wanted to show this interview from last week, Canaccord Genuity Cannabis Panel. I did reference this, I think, one of my previous videos, but I just wanted to play a few clips that highlight, again, just where the people in the industry working on the ground, they wouldn't be continuing to push forward if they weren't so confident, as it is best to take your insights from people that are actually on the ground making this stuff happen. So let's see what Boris has to say when asked about the comprehensive bill and where we're at with everything coming forward.
A great event for the sector, a great moment that, at the most senior levels of the U.S. government, specifically in the Senate, where it's been very hesitant on cannabis, that we had a very comprehensive law introduced. As someone that's worked on committees in the House back in the 1980s, I'm showing my age a little bit, but on tax reform in 1986, I can tell you that the law that's submitted is never the law that gets passed. So these things take time. I think we are going to get legislation for the U.S. cannabis industry. It's hard to say to you today what it's going to look like. I think it will be very different than what's in there today. There's a lot of things that will pass that's there. There's other things that won't. But I can tell you right now that the base law, which I know is the one that the whole industry wants, which is safe banking, does have the votes now. Almost. I think there's one short. They've got close to the amount of votes that they need to have it.
But think about it. At the start of the year when we had no votes, or when we were needed a lot, now we're one short. So just think about the amount of progress we've made, and from here until either the fall or spring, needing to get one more. Now I'm going to let him speak and not cut off, but just wanted to add that for context.
60 person majority in the Senate to pass it. So I think that's very good news. We're very active. We're working in DC 24/7 to make sure that we can get something done. And it's many more groups than just cannabis. I mean, you've got, the Koch brothers are now very active. You've got alcohol and tobacco that's very active. You've got the banking industry that's very active. So we've never been in a moment where there's so much pressure on both the House and Senate to get something passed. And of course, you saw the protections that were passed in the House last week for the derivative of what used to be called a Rohrabacher amendment that was passed in the House last. I think that's also very strong. It was much broader than even the Rohrabacher amendment used to be. So I think things are going very well for the industry, but I think people just need to settle down and understand these things take time to get done. And I think they will get it done. I think they'll get it done probably by the spring of next year, but I don't expect anything earlier than that. It's going to take some time.
And again, I think he's saying that to be safe, and that amendment he was talking about was just that change in the spending bill last week that would change from medical cannabis to cannabis. So every state that dealt with cannabis, whether recreational or medical, would be protected. But the whole idea is, again, just highlighting where we're at. We've never been here. We're treading new water, which is really cool, I think. And then I just wanted to show one more clip later on in the story that kind of touches on his experience. And just that quote I like to use from Ben Graham, that in the short term, the market is a voting machine. In the long term, it is a weighing machine. I think experience trumps everything. So just at least hearing him provide this insight.
Got it. Helpful. Boris, anything to add on this sort of topic before we pivot away?
No, listen, I think that Brian's right. This is a long game. Stock markets, valuations always catch up to fundamentals. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I can tell you, things get missed. But eventually, your results is what counts. And investors always seek good companies. And if you build a good business and your numbers are great, they're going to find a way to get in. Okay, people were investing in emerging markets way before they even had, any kind of legislation around those markets. People were still trying to put money to work, back in the early 90s in a lot of the East European markets and African markets and stuff like that. So money will always find a way in. You just have to have good businesses and a big opportunity. And I think we have a huge opportunity. And I do think, at least in the case of the three companies on this call, they're three great companies. And so I do think that investors will find their way into the sector.
And again, we have great businesses, and we have a unique opportunity where prohibition usually only ends once in a lifetime. Actually, we've got 50 separate states, so we're going state by state. And this becomes a big generational opportunity is being repeated. So I just wanted to highlight that. Again, patience is so important. Boris obviously is saying to be safe that he doesn't see it happening before the spring, but and that's totally possible. So if that is the case, again, it's important to stack up your cash and make sure you're prepared. But I wanted to show this other one from Jason Spatafora, the Wolf of Weed Street. This is a very good clip. And regardless if you've seen Jason Spatafora on Twitter and whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. I think you want to listen to what he has to say because he makes some very good points here. So,
well, it's Groundhog's Day, and here we are again discussing volume and everything and blah, blah, blah. So Booker kind of stuck it to us 2 weeks ago, killed the Momo, created some fear. But if you were banking on legislation and never took a civics lesson to understand how things actually get passed, well, here we are. But summers are for accumulating. That's what I've done since the beginning. Take some off the top in January, February, and wait for this dip. Don't be a flipper. Be an accumulator. Flippers always chase in the fall. All right? Analysts have all buy ratings for all these companies. You can't find one. You can't find one where they're like, Sal, this is bad. Total addressable market, expanding. Fundamentals of the company, expanding. So, which camp are you going to be in? I'm in the camp of not looking at this from a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. I'm in the camp of long-term, right? And I'll manage it, but I'll do my managing in the fall when everybody comes back and all the chasers chase.
It's so funny. I think experience, though, goes a long way because I've only been investing for a little over 2 years. I'm 28 years old. Boris has 30 years of experience, longer than I've even been alive, right? So it's important to try and find investors that you share values with, and then you can at least take their advice and try to trust in some of their experience and apply that to your own investing and whatnot. But I think he speaks a lot of sense there, and we're going to see the fundamentals expanding next week as these earnings come out. So thank you. This Todd Harrison providing from BTIG previews U.S. cannabis valuations continue to scream how inefficiently the stocks are priced. So let's see what we should know. Imagine my surprise and joy when a couple of weeks ago I heard my daughter learning how to play Sweet Child of Mine on the piano. Full disclosure, Guns N' Roses is my favorite band. Got me thinking about the other great Guns N' Roses song and the parallels with cannabis, specifically patience. As we prepare for second quarter 2021 cannabis earnings that kick off on Monday, August 9th, we are expecting a solid set of fundamentals to again underscore our positive long-term view of the sector. State-level data continues to be robust, showing sequential growth from Q1 ranging from 6% to 21% in the markets we track. What's more, July sales have accelerated from June in many states. Example, Illinois plus 17%. Pennsylvania plus 6%, Massachusetts 7.5%, Colorado 9%, which suggests management commentary will also be positive regarding the start of Q3. Fundamentals continue to show strong underlying demand trends as most markets remain supply constrained and pricing is generally holding up, particularly at the premium end. All of this while valuations 8x to 14x or 2022 EBITDA estimates continue to scream how inefficiently the stocks are priced. In this report, we detail our earnings expectations for our 5 considered covered MSOs, GTI, Curaleaf, Verano, Trulieve, and Cresco Labs, as well as potential sales upside for each relative to our published estimates. We also provide an update on our view on current legislation. Our key message is that, in the words of legend Axl Rose, all we need is just a little patience. Again, is that some foreshadowing? And this U.S. MSO reporting earnings next week. Curaleaf, their buy is a price target of 34 Canadian dollars. Reports Monday, August 9th after the market close. We're comfortable with our Q2 308 million revenue estimates. And this is one quarter. So think of 308 over 4 quarters over an entire year, this guidance of 305 million to 315 million and consensus of 307.8. Verano by 47 Canadian price target reports Tuesday, August 10th. Before market open, we expect a solid Q2 with sales nearing the 200 million mark with robust 40% EBITDA margins. Green Thumb, their buy Canadian price target is $73, reports Wednesday, August 11th. After market close, we expect a solid quarter of execution that could result in 6 to 8 million of upside to our 206.9 million revenue estimate. Trulieve buy price target Canadian $98, reports Thursday, August 12th. Before market open, we see potential risk to our Q2 revenue 207 million estimate, consensus of 208.7 given increased competition in Florida. And Cresco Labs buy with a Canadian price target of 24, reports Friday, August. Before market open, we see Illinois as the key driver of a potential 6% sales beat relative to our 195 million estimate, resulting in 205 million to 209 million. So that is a great highlight of what to expect and what we're going to be looking out for next week. And so obviously next week I will be covering all of that as it comes through, but I just wanted to show you some more from Todd Harrison. So thank you, Todd, for providing these. This is from CGF, another investment bank, upgrades most U.S. cannabis. MSO Q2 2021 preview fundamentals continue to strengthen as sector valuations fade. With Q2 2021 earnings season kicking off next week, in this report, we have provided an overview of sales trends for selected U.S. cannabis markets, as well as our earnings expectations for 13 U.S. cannabis companies, including Acreage, Ascend Wellness, Air Wellness, Columbia Care, Cresco, Curaleaf, Goodness Growth Holdings, Green Thumb Industries, Jushi Holding, Planet 13, Trulieve Cannabis Corp., and Harvest Health, Recreation, and Verano. The MSO valuations continue to face pressure despite strengthening fundamentals. Although MSO valuations continue to face pressure since their February highs, we note that the group as a whole is largely flat or modestly up year to date. However, we continue to assert that fundamentals in the U.S. has never been stronger and that structural issues hampering the ability for institutions to hold clear U.S. cannabis equities have resulted in what we believe to be an attractive entry point for those able to participate in the space. So it's also worth noting that this investment firm here highlights that structural issues hampering the ability for institutions to hold and clear U.S. cannabis equities. Yeah, why is that? But regardless, because of that, they see very attractive entry points for new investors to get in, which I think I do agree, and that's why everyone wants to get in now. This one, Andrew Parenthiau from Stifel gets it, so I wanted to provide this one from Todd Harrison. Q2 2021 U.S. cannabis preview, better fundamentals at more attractive prices. Saying the same thing over and over, which is great. Positive, U.S. cannabis operator shares have returned to levels from the Senate runoff election, with senior MSOs down 35% from the February 2021 peak. While this paints a weakening investment case, we believe that it is more likely a healthy profit-taking period, given shares remain up 115% above pre-COVID March 2020 levels. Digging deeper, this has occurred despite New York, Virginia, and Connecticut having passed rec legislation, New Jersey gearing up for rec sales potentially in Q4 2021, offering multi-year upside potential to estimates, impressive performance from Arizona recreational market, and company fundamentals steadily improving. As a result, senior MSO's 2021 estimate EBITDA growth has improved from 50% average to 66% year over year, while valuations decreased by 4x to 11x enterprise value 2022 estimate EBITDA from February 2021, creating a compelling opportunity. So for Q2 2021 earnings, we see the most upward potential for Trulieve Harvest, with GTI continuing a strong execution track record, while focus could be geared towards second half of 2021 and beyond for Cresco Labs, Terra, and Curaleaf. So this one comes from Stifel. Again, all these investment firms, if we got these clips and they didn't have some sort of a brand here from an investment bank, then it would almost just be like someone else's opinion, and you take it with a grain of salt and you read it, compare it. But again, because these are coming from these institutions that actually have the ability to move these prices, it does make us believe that maybe they are preparing to enter or at least get involved if they weren't before. And then I just wanted to show you these are some price target increases, or just a little bit of snippet information on Cresco Labs and Trulieve. So if you just wanted to pause here, I'm not going to read through them all, but this is a little bit of info reiterating a buy on Cresco Labs if you wanted to read about it. This one on Trulieve down here, why this one is reiterating a buy. And also these are from Roth. So Roth Capital, another investment bank. And then we've got this one from Roth previewing GTI growth. So you can pause here if you wanted to read that about GTI. On to some news. As senators vote to expand medical cannabis access for military veterans in key committee. Now this is big because it's for the first time we've seen in a while an actual Senate committee pass something and vote for cannabis in any sort of form. So that's almost like the next step that we're looking for with SAFE and all this. But to see that an actual Senate committee has approved something, an amendment that's meant to promote military veterans' access to medical cannabis by allowing doctors in the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to issue cannabis recommendations in legal states. Why haven't they been doing this since every legal state legal? I don't get it. But better late than never. The measure, sponsored by Senator Jeff Merkley, passed in the Senate Appropriations Committee in a voice vote. It would further prohibit the Veterans Affairs from interfering with or denying services to veterans who participate in the state legal medical cannabis program. And these veterans would benefit greatly from getting cannabis because it helps with so many of the issues they deal with. We have now 36 states that have medical cannabis, and our veterans want to know from their VA doctor what their thoughts are, the pros and cons or appropriate rules and challenges of this particular strategy for treating various issues like PTSD, Merkley said. I think it's really important that we not force our veterans to be unable to access this issue with their doctors. I completely agree. Again, this should have been done decades ago after Vietnam, but regardless, better late than never. Now, this comes from Marijuana Moment. Mexican lawmakers could finally legalize cannabis sales next month. Now, this is an opinion piece written by someone, I forget what their name is, Zara Snap Filter. So I don't know who this is, but I just wanted to highlight sort of the situation in Mexico because we haven't heard from them in a while. But on June 28th, the Supreme Court approved, with a qualified majority of 8 of the 11 ministers, 2 articles in the general health law must be modified to permit adults to cultivate cannabis for personal use in their own homes. These changes were officially published on July 15th, with specific instructions to the health secretary to approve authorizations for any adult who applies. The GDU has certain restrictions attached, including that this is only for personal use and cannot be justified any commercialization of cannabis or cannabis-derived products. With the GDU, the judicial process concludes. However, the Supreme Court was clear in its final recommendations. Congress can and should legislate to clear up inconsistencies and generate legal framework for cannabis users. And they've been doing this work for months beforehand, before they ended up going for a recess, and they didn't get it done. But so there's reason to believe that they'll pick up where they left off and finish it, because obviously that would benefit Mexico and the citizens by creating a legal, regulated market so you can, get tax dollars, provide jobs, and again, eliminate some of the cartel power. But whether the Senate decides to take up this matter again in September when it returns to the legislative session will depend largely on its political whim. The body no longer has a deadline to meet. However, there are growing calls from society to regulate the market beyond home grow, as well as several legal contradictions that obviously needs to be harmonized. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they don't have a responsibility anymore. The government's supposed to work for the people, so they should get this done. That's really all it says, though. So whether they take it up in September, we're going to have to wait and see to find out. But hopefully they do, because obviously, again, they put in the work before, and establishing a legal market with regulations and frameworks allows, again, for taxes, revenue, and taking away from the power of the cartels. It's a no-brainer. If Mexico's government does not do this, they're really just failing the people at this point. So on to the Office of Medical Cannabis Use from Florida. This provides us from updates from the past week from August 2nd to the 6th, and the amount of qualified patients in Florida has increased to 593,045. So this is just under 2,000 in the last week. But keep in mind, it's peak summer in Florida, so I think the last thing Floridians want to do is go outside if they don't have to. Also, going to look for a new doctor or a new form of medicine. So we have seen different times of the year see a lot more patients come by, so I think after summer we will see that trend continue. But regardless, it's good that they continue to add. Regardless, Liberty Health Sciences opened one location, AltMed opened two. But if we go down to look at the sales in terms of milligrams of THC sold, milligrams of CBD sold, and ounces of smokable flower sold, we can see strong sales across the board as well. And again, Trulieve killing it in milligrams of THC sold, but also ounces of smokable flower, like 32,000 ounces is a ton. They surpassed that by 6,000 ounces. So 38,000. This is a record amount for Trulieve. And then when you consider that Trulieve has bought Harvest, they're going to be eating up this market share too. So that's just very positive. Mind you, any company that you're invested in that is in Florida, since the competition is heating up, it's definitely worth tracking this. But it's good to see that from July 30th to August 5th, sales again were strong or increased for a lot of the companies down there. Then if we jump over, this is where news worth highlighting because cannabis tax revenue funds over $2 million in scholarships for Colorado students. Just reiterates what we already know. When you end cannabis prohibition, it does nothing but good for your state and economy, and you'll be rolling in so much cash that you can proactively invest in education where so many other states can't because they're trapped in the 1990s. So this is amazing news, and just the irony to show that, oh yeah, we should start paying attention to the amount of opioid overdoses because that's getting out of control. Yet it's the few states that took the lead that, it's like you're probably living in a new America if you're in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, or Illinois versus if you're living in a state that still views cannabis as the devil. But one county in Colorado, so this is just one county in Colorado, will award $2 million in scholarships thanks to cannabis tax revenue. It will award $1 million to Pueblo Community College, $616,000 to the Colorado State University Pueblo Foundation, $385,000 to CSU Pueblo Athletics for student athletes, and $26,000 to Pueblo African American Concern Organization. So if this isn't progress because of what happens when a single county can legalize cannabis and gives them millions of dollars to reinvest in their citizens, this is real leadership. And so what about these states that are still living in the 90s? Well, the good news is that 2020 cannabis reform ballot initiative efforts are underway nationwide. Now, I'm not going to read through all of this, but I will pause and leave it on here if you want. But cannabis reform activists in several states around the country are already working to qualify various statewide reform measures for the 2022 ballot. Here's a breakdown of the current statewide citizens initiated efforts so far. And I want to highlight this again. It's by individual citizens like you and me that want this change, and we're just tired of waiting, so we're going to actually just make it happen ourselves. So just wanted to highlight that. Kudos to everyone out there putting in work. And so we've got Arkansas that is pushing to get legalization on the ballot, as activists with Arkansas True Grass are working to qualify a ballot measure to legalize and regulate adult use cannabis in the state. Then with Idaho, we have depenalization and medical cannabis. So Idaho activists received the green light from the Secretary of State's office to begin collecting signatures for a proposed depenalization ballot initiative. So imagine you're not going to get a criminal record to go to jail, which is good. Decriminalization would be nice too, but medical will be big for anyone in the state that has medical issues and needs cannabis. Missouri legalization, similar to the campaign to legalize medical cannabis in the state of 2018, Missouri residents could see several competing cannabis legalization measures on the state's 2022 ballot. So that's good to see progress there. Nebraska for medical cannabis. After a 2020 medical cannabis measure was stripped from the ballot, which is crazy because it was stripped by a politician despite the efforts from the citizens to get it put on the ballot, They are trying again for 2022, so hopefully that sticks this time around. Ohio seems to be on pace, and proponents are behind the efforts. The coalition to regulate cannabis, like alcohol, have submitted an initial slew of signatures in hopes of qualifying a statewide ballot measure that would push lawmakers to enact adult use legalization in Ohio. But they've also recently just filed a bill, the lawmakers in that state, so it's good to see progress coming out of there because that's one of the more populated states that we've been waiting to come online. South Dakota legalization, the fact that they voted to legalize on the ballot in 2020, and then again the Supreme Court tried to strike that down, is insane. So South Dakota is doing everything that they need to do to ensure that that doesn't happen again and that their 2022 ballot sticks. So good to see them working on that. And then Wyoming for decriminalization and medical cannabis. So good to see that individuals in these states are working to get this done. So if you're in any of these states, consider trying to help out if you can. That would be awesome. Any help that we can to shift the status quo and make this new normal come sooner than later will be helpful. But obviously this is great progress. This is what we want to see because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 3 at least for adult use states working to get that done. Progress is happening every single day. And Maine's cannabis market keeps growing, set sales record in June. Now this is hilarious, but I wanted to provide the context between Maine, a small, tiny state with a very small population, versus the bigger ones that we've seen, because you're going to laugh, but there's still big progress. Maine's recreational cannabis market continued its eye-popping growth in June, the state reported. Sales of cannabis for recreational adult use topped 6.47 million for the month, up from 5.36 million in May. According to new data from the Maine Office of Cannabis Policy, more than 86,000 purchases took place. Now this might not seem like a lot, but the value of June sales is the highest monthly total since Maine's recreational cannabis market launched last October and represents a 20.6% increase over the dollar amount in May, because obviously the amounts are much smaller, so 5.36 million to 6.46 million is still 20% month-over-month increase. So that's very big, slightly less than the 23.2% growth in May over the previous month. To date, sales have totaled nearly 30 million according to OMP, and June sales were roughly 6 times the total for the first month alone. So even in tiny states, the sales are growing at very, very quick rates. So that's very positive for us to see that, again, as just more states make the move to end prohibition, whether they're big, whether they're small, they're going to start growing very quickly when they start this adult use market. And we've seen it happen in states, and that just can give us reason to believe that when more states do it, we're going to see the exact same trends. And so we want to see what happened in Colorado, what's happening in Illinois, what's happening in Arizona. We want to see that follow every single state. On to some other news. Calvin Johnson aims to change game with cannabis business. So just wanted to highlight this because if you're a football fan, you know Calvin Johnson from the Detroit Lions, Megatron. He's a beast. But just want to add, the relatively young man known as Megatron, when he was a Detroit Lions receiver, plans to make the most of his post-playing career. He aims to change the conversation about cannabis and help improve the lives of people whether or not they want to partake. Johnson and former Lions teammates Rob Sim, founder of Michigan-based Primitive, a cannabis research company, and created a collaboration with Harvard University to research how cannabis can help people with CTE and chronic pain. So I think is ultimately great to see, again, more athletes getting involved and trying to find better recovery methods than what had previously been used in the past, and leads us to believe that Calvin Johnson likely started to use cannabis after his career and has experienced the benefits himself, and for that reason he's willing to invest his life in cannabis education and in this sort of line of business going forward. So positive change, shows what the plant can do. While as Americans plan to resume travel, cannabis tourism is expected to boom. About a third of vacationers polled say they are interested in cannabis-related activities, which is awesome. And that's good news, not only for cannabis tourism, but overall tourism, according to the Cannabis Travel Association. In a 2020 report on cannabis tourism, they wrote that cannabis tourism stimulates the overall tourism economy, and unlike competing with events, hotels, and restaurants, cannabis acts as an enhancer, assisting visitors in making the very most of their experiences. And according to a survey of Americans, about 29% of travelers are interested in cannabis-related activities while on vacations. As for destinations, California, Nevada, Colorado, Alaska, and Washington top the list of the states that travelers want to visit where adult use cannabis is legalized. So that's great. And again, just think about it, as more people get vaccinated and as the world starts to get normal-ish again, there's going to be more travel, not less, and that's going to be more cannabis consumption, not less, as the sentiment is changing. Last but not least, we've got part 2 of ranking our top 7 up-and-coming mid-cap MSOs from the Cannabis Investing Network. So just wanted to bring you this one. And their 4 to 7 picks are PharmaCann, a private company that you can't even invest in, so I'm not really sure why they bring that up, but probably trying to prepare you in case they come out with their IPO. Goodness Growth, which was Vireo, Jushi, and Consortium. So if you wanted to listen to this one, it's a very informative podcast. I did listen to the other one, and it was great. This one kind of highlights same reason why I invested in Vireo and Goodness Growth to begin with, because I thought they could be a potential buyout and part of this M&A acquisition. They still likely will be going forward, but lot of good information in here to listen to, and if you wanted to check out, again, some other tier 2 MSOs as opposed to tier 1s, just to see if there are other opportunities where they're trading at a very low market cap versus the expected amount of sales they're going to do in 2022 or 2023, there are opportunities for growth in here as well. Sorry, I know I said that this would be last, but just wanted to add this conference calendar in case you had not checked it out yet, but we do have MSO earnings coming next week, so I will be back obviously Wednesday to provide a midweek update and cover some of that in there, but I will be doing separate videos to cover tier 1 MSO earnings and then some tier 2 ones, just to go through that and try to relay the fundamental numbers for you to make sure that they are on track and that the growth is continuing, and that we're seeing that from each company. But again, just to highlight, like if Trulieve is valued right now at $7 billion US dollars, and they do in their second quarter $308 million. And keep in mind, they're growing quarter over quarter, right? They're growing their revenues. So if you multiply that by 4, that's 308, 1.2 billion on a run rate. If you were to compare that to any other company in any other industry on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ, they'd be trading at a $20 to $25 billion market cap. Easy if they're on a run rate of 1.2 billion. So just wanted to highlight that. And that just means all of these companies are almost even just as attractive as Trulieve or more attractive. Like Trulieve or Cresco, for example, they are trading at about 4.3 to 4.5 billion dollar market cap. Yet, if you were to take 207 times 4, that's a run rate of almost $1 billion. $4 billion market cap for $1 billion of revenue. If you were any other company in any other industry on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ where U.S. capital could get in, you would be valued at least $15 billion. Likely 20 billion, but that is what gives us reason to believe that from these current prices there is 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x potential upside. Whether it comes after safe, whether it doesn't, we can expect that to come at some point. So that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What do you think? Are you excited for earnings or are you worried? Let me know in the comments, especially if you have any questions or concerns, as I'd be happy to address them so that we can debate or have a little bit of a discussion in there. But regardless, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, subscribe if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great day, everybody.